authorities.
My patient, Madame Lefebvre, is 86 years old. She's in a state of great weakness and serious malnutrition, which makes it absolutely necessary for her to keep her mattress.
It wasn't just material loss. The Germans rounded up thousands of teenage boys and girls for forced labor.
The last 3 weeks we have spent in the most terrible anguish and moral torture possible for a mother's heart. At 3 in the morning, these German heroes go out with a military band and machine guns and bayonets fixed to hunt down women and children, to take them away. God knows where or why.
Eve's brother got a job at the railway station.
Robert is unloading wagons of animal carcasses, already green and covered with rotten pieces of flesh, crawling with vermin. He has to touch these stinking dead animals with his bare hands.
Occupied France was run like a military state, as this film of the German military police in Lille shows. Clocks were set to German time, new identity papers issued.
The Germans generally made us parade at 5 a.m. One night, however, the whole commune was called out at 1 in the morning. An old man of 92 asked to be allowed to stay in bed, but the troops made fun of him, pushed him out of the house, and said that fresh air was good for the dying.
Ordinary people had stark choices to make about how to deal with the occupation. There was some resistance against the Germans, mostly passive. Belgian opposition was spurred on by the head of the Catholic Church, Cardinal Mercier. His letter, Patriotism and Endurance, was read out in every church across Belgium in February 1915.
God will save Belgium, my brethren. You cannot doubt it. Nay, rather, he is saving her. Across the smoke of conflagration, across the stream of blood, have you not glimpses of his love for us? There is no perfect Christian who is not also a perfect patriot. Whence, in truth, comes this irresistible impulse which carries the will of the whole nation in a single effort of resistance in the face of the hostile menace?
Mercier kept up his resistance, calling the Germans an army of evil and Lucifer's own. This embarrassed not just the Germans, but the Vatican. Like Pope Pius XII during the Second World War, Pope Benedict XV refused to condemn German atrocities. The Germans placed Mercier under house arrest in a bid to silence him, but it only increased his popularity. The Germans also unwittingly created another martyr. Edith Cavell was the British matron of a hospital in Brussels. After Belgium was overrun, she helped Allied soldiers escape into neutral Holland. In August 1915, she was caught, tried and condemned to death. The night before her execution by firing squad, she spoke to the prison chaplain.
I have no fear or shrinking. I have seen death so often that it is not fearful or strange to me. And this I would say, standing as I do in view of God and eternity. I realize that patriotism is not enough. I must have no hatred or bitterness against anyone.
The British exploited to the hilt stories of German atrocities against women, especially the shooting of Edith Cavell. Films like this one were made to show in neutral countries, particularly America.
I closed her eyes and placed her body in the coffin. She was the bravest woman I ever met, going to her death with poise and bearing. She had, however, acted as a man towards the Germans, and deserved to be punished as a man.
The Germans rounded up underground leaders, then posted notices of their execution. And they used another method to ensure civil obedience. They took hostages, including Yves Congar's father.
The hour is near. The last meal together, the goodbyes, the hugs. I want to cry. Father walks to the station with just us boys. I bite my lip and feel my eyes tightening. Father says, "I love you. Farewell. Remember me." Then he kissed us. Every night I'll say a prayer for my father and the other hostages.
Civilian men, women and children were packed into cattle trucks, sent to concentration camps as hostages and forced labourers. Several thousand French and 58,000 Belgians.
The rounding up of civilians by the enemy has been tragic. The weaker, because they were the most harmless, were detained without understanding the reason for their arrest, without time to collect any belongings, suddenly considered as criminals. Then taken to concentration camps to assure security in the occupied areas. These civilians became simple pawns in the hands of their captors.
A doctor's daughter from Lille learned what her father was suffering.
Papa was locked up for 5 days for refusing to assist an operation carried out by a Boche. All food packages are opened and classified. The prisoners come each day to collect their provisions, but there's only one container. Milk, fish, fruit, all tipped into one bucket, because the Germans use the tins to make grenades.
Far from being broken by the German occupation, Yves Congar, who became a prisoner in the Second World War, was politicized by it.
There's hardly any bread. The swines will leave us to die of hunger. Too bad. After all, we are French, and if we have to die, we shall die. But France will be victorious.
In the next episode of the First World War, global conflict rocks empires as Germany beats the Royal Navy in the Pacific and maverick armies rampage through Africa.